Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Third Eye Business Podcast. Join us on this journey to hear from some of the most successful professionals, entrepreneurs in the world. In today's episode, we have a very special guest, Ankur Mehra, an army veteran with around 20 years of experience in the tech and the digital ecosystem. He is a thought leader in the content created and now going to be an author very soon. He has his book coming up. So, welcome, Ankur, to our second podcast.
Thank you very much, Neeraj. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Great. So, let's start with talking about your career in the army, moved on to various key roles, and then building your own startup as well. And now being a leader at Meta and publishing a book. Take us through this journey, talk about some of the learnings and ups and downs you had.
Well, thank you very much, Neeraj. I think you thank you for the very warm introduction and all. I think it's a pleasure to be here with you all. And yes, you're right. I've had a very diverse and a very rich career. It's not been the normal straight line sort of a career. I have been, there are a few pivot points in my career all through. As you mentioned, I was in the army. That's where I started my career from. In between, I was an ed tech entrepreneur. Then I was working in the big tech industries, working across the globe. And now I'm an author as well. So it seems like I've done all the legal ways of earning money. So I'm really excited about it. But to your question around what have been the key learnings across the different career paths that I've tread on, let's start with the army. I think the biggest learning for me in the army was not about being a people leader as much as being a people player. So it's not always about leading, but it's also about being a good team player. When you are working with a lot of folks coming from different backgrounds, working towards a common objective, you need to strive to be a person who can get along with everybody and lead everybody together, and also at the same time be a part of the team. So that was the key learning that I feel that I got from the army. After that, the other pivot moment for me was when I was an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, the biggest learning for me was, I guess, I've heard this somewhere. Somebody say, it's customer obsession. Being obsessed about what is it that your customer wants, and everything can follow around it. Keeping that as a centerpiece and everything to move around it. That's the biggest learning that I had as an entrepreneur. Then when I was working at the big tech, whether it was in India or whether it was in the US, whether it was in Singapore, the big learning that I had during my experience in the corporate big tech has been the importance of communication, and importance of communication not just with your team members, but upward communication, lateral communication, diagonal communication, any sorts of communication, working with different people from different cultures and backgrounds, different geographies, and having a chance to understand where they come from, what their point of view is, being able to make your point of view come across, and then rallying up the whole team to kind of reach up to the objectives. I think that was the key learning that I had in a multicultural kind of a setup. And then finally, as an author right now, I guess the biggest learning as an author has been the virtue of patience. This is a journey which seems glamorous on the outside when you say that you've been an author and all, but actually when you're in on this part of the fence, when you're writing a book, it really needs a lot of patience and perseverance and focus, consistent focus over years or over months in my case.
Got it. Got it. I personally was aspired to be into the defense services. That was my first goal when I
Oh,
was
really?
growing up as a kid. Yeah. So when I actually first met is I was pretty curious to learn the transition and know more about your personal side of the story. What led you to this transition happen? And
Yeah,
between two distinct career options you
yeah.
had, which one really you personally choose to stay longer with? I have lived the corporate side. I've not seen
Yeah.
the RV side of it, but tell us more about that.
Well, army was like the initial part of my career. It's been out of those 20 years that you mentioned in the beginning,
Uh-huh.
just only about the corporate life has been about, say, 12, 13 years on the other side. I think, and also the fact that I was very young when I joined the army. I was just in my, barely in my 21 years of age when I joined the army, maybe late 20s. So that has been like the best part of my life. I will not trade the army life for anything else because it is genuinely the part that I love the most, the memories that I have the most about. And then, as you know, and you've heard about it often, like friends that you make in the army are they're like family. So I mean, I still am in touch with my course-mates, although I've left the army 13 years back.
Mhm.
But my course-mates, when I still meet them, we are like brothers, and will always be like that. So I mean, that you'll never find in the corporate as much as you can find it in the army. But again, coming on to the corporate side of life, I think that's another high altogether. The kind of exposure, the kind of In my case, I was very fortunate to travel all over the world. I'm extremely proud and glad of the fact that I've served on both sides of the fence. So I
Yeah,
think it's a very rare privilege. I'm
yeah.
really happy for that.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a real privilege, and I missed the one part, but I've kind of happened to have the other part,
Yeah,
and now living the entrepreneurial thrill,
yeah,
which
that's
is a
another
very
one.
different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's another life altogether.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. But tell
Yeah.
us about your leadership experience, right? I think you have had leadership experiences at Brave by Sam, Meta as well. You have held critical leadership positions in the content space.
Yeah.
Take us through that journey of your career progression, particularly. What has been that experience, and some of the challenges you've faced at the top levels?
Well, that's an interesting question. And yes, at Brave Bison, I was the country manager for them. I was the first person to build up the sales pipeline for them as they were entering into India. And being the country manager, I think the key piece for me was to kind of build up the sales org for them. That leadership experience was absolutely phenomenal because number one, I got to build a business from 0 to 1. It was an entirely greenfield, opportunity for me. We did not have a service like that before. I was given a very clear mandate from my leadership to kind of go ahead and build a business across the country and all. I think that was very empowering, and at the same time, it helped me to kind of understand where at what levels was I at to build an org completely from 0 to 1. Uh, I think those learnings were tremendously useful. Brave Bison was also, apart from being a video streaming platform at the time, they were also one of the leading multi-channel networks, a YouTube multi-channel network.
Hmm.
In fact, they were the biggest multi-channel network outside of North America. At
Hmm.
that time, this company was called Rightstar. So I also had an opportunity, and that was my first opportunity really to work with creators very up close and personal. And I happened to set up the MCN business for them in India, and which was a huge learning curve for me because at that time the YouTube creator economy, so to say, was kind of just building up in India. So it was still the early days and all, and I had the opportunity of working with a lot of creators, getting into the back end of their channels, understanding how the data analytics work, and also being some sort of a thought consultant to them in terms of like how the growth should look like from a YouTube growth standpoint. Um, and then I was when I joined Meta about 8 years back. I joined in Hyderabad, and my role was mainly to look after all the language media partnerships. Up
Hmm.
till at that time, the media partnerships team was basically working with the top Hindi and English creators. And my mandate was to build a language media partnership. And as you know, India is a very diverse country with so many different languages markets over here. So I had an opportunity to understand the flavors of different markets or different languages. And that was a huge learning curve for me, right from the Bengali market to the four South Indian languages to the Punjabi to the Odia. And that was a very, very rich experience for me. And being the first employee again to set up that business, it was a very rare privilege and a rare opportunity for me to kind of build deep understanding of the Indian media market across multiple languages. And then going from there, I was also entrusted with the responsibility of handling all the mid market or the aspiring and the emerging creators on Facebook and Instagram for all of India across all languages, including Hindi and English. And then I moved on to Singapore to lead the Asia Pacific market for, again, the mid tier of all the creators. And these creators were across news, entertainment, and sports. And then finally, I moved to the US to also lead the market for North America and for Latin America. And again, as you would realize that all of these different markets are extremely divergent and they're very distinct from each other. Within India, there are multiple markets. Within APAC, there are again multiple markets. Latin America is again very heterogeneous. So I had an opportunity to work across multiple spectrums of creators across multiple different, cultural and media backgrounds and all. And it's been a very enriching experience. I think it's kind of shaped me up for building myself up for more opportunities like this in multiple regional roles.
Yeah. No, I think I didn't know the kind of diversity of experience you have into this space, and that's phenomenal to have because what you see in the creator economy in India or in APAC is very, very different
Yeah,
in what you see across Western world.
yeah.
And I think with that view, I'm really looking forward what you gonna divulge in your book. But tell us more, right? That's a opportunity for me to get a sneak peek into what you are writing and is
Sure.
going to publish into this space. Give us the insight into this evolving landscape, the kind of opportunities for creators as well as for the business owners into the space.
Yeah. So I think the first things first. I think the big piece around here is the evolution of the media tech industry. Um, if you look at it, when video was invented, that was about 100 years back, and then it took about 100 years for media or for video to get invented to becoming more mainstream. And then the social media came around in the early 2000s and all. And it took about 10 years for social media to get mainstream.
Yeah,
And then if you look at as technology kind of progress, you see ChatGPT coming in and it, reaches 1 million users in a matter of 5 days.
yeah,
And then Threads comes in and it reaches 1 million followers in a matter of, you know, a few hours itself. So I think the evolution of the media technology has been really starkingly fast, and that enables the people who play in this economy itself. I was reading a recent report by Goldman Sachs, and they say that the creator economy itself is expected to be touching about $500 billion
wow,
by 2027, and we are at about $250 billion at the moment right now.
yeah,
So it's taken 10 years to come from zero to, let's say, $250 billion,
hmm,
and another 4 years, 3 to 4 years to double itself.
hmm,
So that is the speed of evolution that's happening in the creator economy, and which means that, again, another study by Adobe said that there are more than 160 million creators who joined the creator ecosystem, uh, during the COVID-19,
hmm,
the pandemic. So if you look at it, the evolution has been so fast, and there are millions of people who are becoming creators now. And it will be very difficult if I ask you, anybody for that matter, look around you. You'll probably find somebody like a creator who's in your network. You'll probably have somebody who's either a blogger or a podcaster or a content creator. There you are. Everybody is. In some shape and form, we all are. But everybody is there, and there are millions of people who are making content. Less than point or less than 2% of people actually make a sustainable living out of it, right? And it's not because they don't know how to create content. It's because there are a lot of nuances to the creator economy. There are a lot of factors to the creator economy which people should understand. If you understand the rules of the game, then you are in a better position to leverage it for your own advantage.
yeah,
That is the book all about.
got it.
So the book kind of lays out the lay of the land for how the creator economy looks like, and I call it the 5C concept,
Okay,
where there is the creator, then there are the brands, we call them the collaborators, then there are the channels or the platforms, then there's a commerce opportunity where you do merchandising and tutoring or subscription driven kind of models and all, and then the fifth C is the consumer, which is bang in the center. So the whole 5C is all about talking to each other.
so is it safe to say that's the kind of ecosystem in the creator economy, and we have quite a few of those today watching us? And if you were to tell us and give us a maybe a second level click to this book, what are some of the opportunities and areas each of
Hmm.
these stakeholders should be watching and
Yeah.
taking view into it? What would that be?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And see, the thing is, like, of course, these are all, so the three pieces over there in this 5C economy are the most important ones in terms of like the ones that create an economy, really. The
Yeah,
creator, the channels, and the collaborators. So when we talk about these three, there are opportunities when we're talking to each other and when they're interacting with each other and all. Let's talk about firstly the creators and the brands.
hmm,
What we see and what we're seeing now is that there's an emergence of the emerging and the aspiring creators on one side, and there's an emergence of the small and medium businesses on the other side. Up till now, it was the big brands working with the big creators. Most of the economy was running around there. But what we're seeing now is that a lot of small and medium businesses, the emerging businesses, they are figuring out or they're trying to figure out ways to work with the emerging creators. And why is that? That is because even if you are a small, let's say a nano or a micro creator, and nano creators, for context, are with followers, let's say from 1 to 10,000, and micro creators are from 10,000 to 100,000 followers. So even if you're working with a nano or a micro creator, they might be small, but their community is very tight. They have a very loyal fan following. So people who follow them really trust them because they could come from very niche areas and all. And a lot of these brands that we're talking about, the small and medium brands also, are now realizing the power of harnessing these loyal fan bases of these nano and those micro creators. And that is an economy space that we think that is going to kind of build up a lot.
hmm,
The second piece that I see between the creators that is going to happen now is that we all have been hearing about how AI is going to take over and all. And maybe in some ways and shapes and forms, it might be true. Not really to say that it's going to take everything over, but from a creator, whenever a creator is creating content, it's either hero content or hub content or hygiene content. Hygiene content is content that any creator produces like every day. That's a like regular piece of content. Hub is when you're, let's say, a newsletter, something which you're doing every once in a week, or something which you're doing with some periodic pauses. And then hero content is the one which is very, as the name suggests, like that is the content which everybody's putting their heart and soul into as a creator. So what we see is, or what we are seeing as a trend coming up is that AI is going to be used extensively for the hygiene content, which is the regular content, the thumbnails and building of the content and every day-to-day sort of content. The hub content is going to be more collaborative. There will be bits of AI, but more bits of the creator innovations also. And then the hero content is where it will be led primarily by the creator. And therefore, that content is going to be where the subscription model will really come in. So we see a lot of creators making more content, which is going to be more in-person content, where there's more empathy, there's more thoughtfulness to the content and all, and that's the content where people will pay to watch. The rest is
Yeah,
going to be more sort of everyday sort of content viewing and all. And as a trend from a creator perspective, what we're also seeing is that there will be opportunities for creators to kind of monetize themselves beyond the platforms only, the channels in this case.
got it.
So at this current stage where we are, creators go ahead and make a lot of content. It is all dependent on the ads that are running on those platforms. And tomorrow, if the platform changes the algorithms, now the creator is left high and dry because they've made a lot of content, they've made a lot of community, and suddenly it's not monetizable anymore. So therefore, a lot of these creators are kind of figuring out ways to have alternate sources of revenues for them. And that also means like having merchandising. It could mean doing one-on-one mentoring sessions. It could mean doing creating content for a very curated set of people. So that's going to come up from a creator lens and all. From a brand perspective, other thing that we are seeing is that the brands are turning more like creators themselves. A lot of brands that we see today, they have their own social media page, and a case in point is like Duolingo. It is a brand which has got a personality of an owl, which is a Duolingo mascot. And if you look at the social media pages, it's garnered its own following in its own right and all. So we see that brands are going to become more like creators, and creators are going to become more like brands in the future. So I think this mishmash is going to happen, and there will be an opportunity for for brands to kind of capitalize on it, for creators to capitalize on it, and for platforms to capitalize. And at the end of the day, the best scenario, the best decider is going to be the consumer because they're the ones who are going to be actually paying the money for everything and consuming content.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and you kind of touched upon some of the follow-up question I wanted to ask and
Hmm.
give me a very good clarity. But I think the one thing I want to dive deeper is while all of these things are happening and the economy is growing, not just from a creator perspective, but on the other stakeholders, there are brands growing, collaborators, number of platforms are growing, and it is becoming increasingly complex
Hmm.
for a brand's perspective to
Hmm.
one find and discover the right creator, figure out who
Yeah.
to work and what to work, how to measure success.
Yeah.
It's becoming a challenge for a creator also. What kind
Hmm.
of platform is suitable for me?
Hmm.
Where should he kind of focus over the others? And I'm sure the platform has its own challenges around policies,
Yeah.
uh, around other pieces to navigate.
Yeah.
Let's start with the businesses perspective and then we'll dive into creators. Is
Hmm.
how do you think businesses should look up to these challenges?
I think that's a great point that you touched upon. From a business point of view, I think a lot of times we've seen in the past is that businesses go after creators who've got a big number of followers. And a lot of times they also realize that while you might go with the creator who's got a number of followers, it is not really the right and the most accurate metrics to follow
Mhm.
because of various reasons. I think the way brands should look at a creator engagement, for that, I think it's important to understand what the brand is like. What are those top three things that a brand is looking to do?
Mhm.
One, a brand is looking to identify new audiences.
Mhm.
Number two, they want to showcase their product to those audiences. And number three, they want to earn a profit,
Yeah.
right? So, from a perspective of identifying new audiences and for showcasing their product, brands should identify creators who are, obviously they should have some amount of followers, but the more critical aspect, the KPI that they should be looking for is the engagement metrics.
Mhm.
Like what kind of engagement is happening on the content, and by engagement I mean comments, likes, and shares. So if the creator is putting out content, are people actually engaging with that content? Is that, or just content just going nowhere, and they might have a lot of followers, but there's no interaction on the piece of content. So that's a great lever for a brand to kind of look into. The second piece I think a brand should look into is, and especially smaller brands should look into, is how many times, or what is the cadence of content that the particular creator is putting out content in. Like, is it like they are putting out content once in a month, maybe, and then vanishing for the next 3 months? Or are they putting out content every single day of the week, and they are kind of engaging with the customers or people who are kind of making comments and all those things? That shows the authenticity and the investment from a creator lens into their content. And that's what you want. I feel it's important for them to identify a partnership model which is truly partnership oriented. It should not be about, just throwing some money out there. So the whole aim is that you want to work with a partner or with a creator who could actually be a partner to you, who's also invested in your success. Maybe the way to look at it is that you want to try and see if you can work with a creator who is ready to work on some incentive model with you.
Yeah.
So, if you are saying that, if a creator goes and says, I'll give you, whatever, 30,000 views, that is not important for you. What is important for you is that how do you actually get a revenue out of that 30,000 views? Or how
Yeah.
do you get a click to buy out of those? The third thing that is important that I always see is, if you look at the sales funnel model, there's attention, there is interest, there's desire, and then there's action, right? There's always a sales formula called 95 is to 5, which means that 95% of the people will not buy at any given point of time, and 5 people will go ahead and buy. And those 95% of the people who will not buy, they are either at attention stage, or the interest stage, or the desire stage. They are the three parts of the funnel. And the action stage is only the 5% people. So I think what, as a brand, you should be trying to do is that if you are trying to create a buzz around, let's say, your brand only, then you should be working with more creators, because creators are the ones who are going ahead and dumping a lot of content on the platforms. And that's what you need. You need to create noise. You need to create, share of voice and all, and that's why you need creators. But if you want to drive conversions, then you should be driving that through influencers. And by influencers, a lot of people do get confused between a creator and an influencer. I think the easier way to understand it is that creators are people who are creating content all the time. Influencers are people who are driving action.
Okay.
All creators can be influencers, and all influencers must be creators or should be creators. You can have the same person who's driving that first AID of the model, the attention, the interest, and the desire. And then that person becomes an influencer when they are converting the last action. So what is important is, you want to, as a brand, you want to partner with creators and influencers both. Creators to create the buzz around around your brand, and influencers to create the action or the buy action at the end.
How do you identify this? These two, is that the same people are both, or they are two different
It's
people?
it's like, I always give this analogy of saying that if you are in a house, there's one influencer room and there's a creator room. So a
Mm-hmm.
person can walk from a creator room to the influencer room and vice
Okay.
versa.
Okay.
So they can be the same person, but they can also be a separate influencer sitting there and a separate creator sitting here.
Interesting.
But like I was saying, ideally, all creators can become influencers if they have a loyal fan base, and they can trigger an action from the loyal fan base.
Mhm.
That's an influencer then, you know.
Interesting.
But all influencers should ideally be creators. Like, they might or might not be. Like, you might have a offline influencer. Like, a great example is Cristiano Ronaldo. If you look at it, he's a
Mm-hmm.
brilliant influencer. At the same time, he's a creator. He gives a good view on his content creation, on his personal life, on his professional life. He's a creator as well. But when he comes to influence, he can easily trigger off an influential mood also.
Got it. Got it. No, I this is a very nice distinction. I think at least I did not know that creators and influencers are two different, or kind of there can be two different
Yeah, I think
materials.
it's a lot to do with the intent of the
Yeah.
advertiser.
Understood. So I think this is great. I think on a brand side, tell us about the creator side. I'm sure there are millions of those creators today struggling to reach to the right brands, get the right monetization done.
Yeah.
How can they navigate this piece so that this marriage can happen?
Yeah.
more seamlessly.
A lot of times, in fact, I was reading a study a few days back. It says that even the big brands, the brands that we all know, like the Nikes of the world, the Coca-Colas of the world and all, they literally don't have a lot of inbounds coming in to them from creators, because from a creator lens, they don't know who to reach in a
Yeah,
brand. It's
yeah,
like a mess out there. It's like a big black box. You don't know where to go.
yeah.
But what is happening now is that most of the brands are now starting their own influencer sort of a page, where they do give affiliate links and all, and they do have a lot of touch points with creators. So it's noteworthy for creators to keep an eye out. And by the way, the big brands are looking for smaller creators to create the buzz, you know. And that brings me back to the point we were talking about earlier. So even the big brands want to work with small creators, because they know that they'll be able to create a lot of product buzz, or around their product lines and all. However, when a Nike is going to launch a particular type of a shoe or a new brand of a shoe, then they will end up working with an influencer, you know. But in a normal, between those peaks, in those sort of plateau regions, they want to work with a lot of creators.
Hmm.
And so therefore, even the big brands, as per the study, it says that only about they get inbounds from only about 5 creators in a week. Imagine a Nike just getting 5 creators in a week reaching out to them. There should be like thousands of them reaching out to them on a daily basis. But a lot of times they don't do it because they don't know how to do it.
Hmm.
I think I would encourage even the smaller creators to make sure that they do visit the brands that they want to kind of work with.
Hmm.
Most of the brands have an option to kind of sign up as a creator
Hmm.
and build content for them. They can even, one of the tactics that we've seen a lot of creators do is that they do a lot of pro bono work to begin with.
Hmm.
They make a lot of content. Let's say since we're talking about Nike as an example, they might make a lot of Nike content and coming up like on a regular basis and all, and tagging the brand every time.
Yeah.
When you tag the brand every time, and if your content is doing sort of slightly well and all, if your content is kind of getting a lot of interactions and comments and likes and shares and all those things, there's a high possibility that you will get noticed by the brand managers of that particular brand, and they will reach out to you to figure out how to work with you and all. So I think that's a very, it's not I can't say that it's a foolproof technique, but a lot of people do that, and a lot of smaller creators especially do that because they want to catch the right attention from the brands. I think the model should be to service first and sell later.
Yeah.
You know, just go ahead and give the service right now as a creator because you're establishing yourself.
So one of the interesting question we get from the brands when they really look at to design their strategy, irrespective of which stage of the funnel, is around why and how should they really look at this creator slash influencer economy
Hmm.
to be part of the media mix. Tell us what should be their thought process.
I think for a brand, when they're trying to work with a creator, and rather if they're trying to figure out whether they want to work with a creator in the first place or not, I think the first question that they should ask is the why. Why is it that they want to work with the creator? And if the answer is something on the lines of they want to create, let's say, brand awareness, or they want to create more eyeballs, or they want to create some chatter of the brand, or with the audiences or with the target audiences, that is the central piece, the why piece. The next question is how do you work with that creator? And the answer to that might define your platform strategy. Okay, so I've identified these are the 3 creators that I want to work with. Which are the platforms that I should be working with them on? Every audience and every different platform is different. So, what is it that you are trying to reach out to? Which kind of audience? And that is the platform strategy that you should be able to define in the how. And then finally is the question around the what. So, what should you do if you've identified the creators, you've identified the platforms? Now, what should you do with them? And that is answer goes back whether you're looking for creating awareness or interest or desire. So, what sort of content can do that best? If you're looking at driving the buy action, then what sort of content can do that? And that is where you need to partner with a creator. And as a brand, I will always encourage the brand not to get into the creative process. You're a brand, you're a product people, you are not the creator. Let the creator understand your problem and give you the solution. You can jam with them on the solution, you can try and figure out what the answer to the what, but do not try and become the creator yourself,
Got it.
because eventually the creator knows the language in which they are talking to their audiences, and they have built trust in that language. You don't want to superimpose your brand language on that, because that might just dilute the whole process of, first of all, working with the creator. So I think coming back to the point, I think the first question is the why, the second question is the how, and the last question is the what.
Got it. And very quickly, Ankur, what are some of the emerging trends are you seeing that we should be watching for next few years?
Yeah, I think the first thing, AI is always going to be there, and I'm not going to go too much into AI because we've spoken about it. The second piece, I think, which is from a media standpoint that I see as a trend coming up, is that content up till now was on your phone screens, on your laptop screens, on your iPad screens, was talking to you one way. You can choose to figure out which content to watch, but eventually the content was just one directional. You can choose what you want to watch, but it was coming to you in one way. I think what's going to change is that content by nature is going to become more experiential and more immersive. It means that you will be a part of the content. You will feel the experience while as if you're being a part of the storytelling itself. So that's going to change in the near future, it feels. The third piece I feel as a trend might be that up till now, as a creator, you've got an audience on Instagram, you've got an audience on TikTok, you've got an audience on Facebook. If tomorrow the algos change or algorithms change, you're losing your audience network over there. Plus, you don't own your audiences. You don't have the details of the data points of that audiences. You just know when they come and watch your content. And that's sort of very first level. What I see happening in the future is that there will be more decentralization
Mm-hmm.
of platforms. And there's a concept called the Fediverse that's going to come up. It's almost like, as if you and I send emails to each other, you might use an Outlook and I might use a Gmail.
Mm-hmm.
But even though we are in different environments of Outlook and Gmail, we are still able to connect on emails,
Wow.
right? And that is what will happen in the decentralized land of platforms, where whether you are on X platform or a Y platform or Z platform, you will be able to talk cross platform between different platforms and be able to own your audiences across different platforms. So that's another thing that might come up. And last but not the least, I see that there will be certainly more regulatory frameworks that will come up. Trust and safety has been a big issue up till now, and we've seen that governments were very late to wake up to this. They came up late, and then they were trying to catch up with the platforms, and doing a lot of hearings and all those things, trying to understand the platforms and how can they kind of have more regulated sort of platforms. But now in the Web 3.0 world that we're heading into, I see that regulatory frameworks will be a part of the part and parcel from the thought process itself, and will be more entwined into how we are going to experience content in the future.
Interesting. I'm looking forward to how this interoperability come into the picture.
That will be
You can
interesting.
watch Instagram content on YouTube. Is that what you meant? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It may not
Um,
be the exact same platforms though, but yes.
yeah.
Like for
Yeah.
example, Threads is the first platform under the Meta umbrella,
Uh-huh.
which is Fediverse enabled. YouTube and Instagram and all are not, but I think they are all moving towards that direction anyway. So yes, to your answer, yes,
Yeah. I
something or the
mean,
other will
if
happen.
it happens, it's not surprising, I think.
It shouldn't be surprising. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. No, great. Makes sense. My last question, Ankur, as a final thought, right? Tell us more about your book. When is it releasing? Where can we find out? And why one should read it?
Thank you for that. Well, actually, I'm very excited about the book, and I'm very happy to also mention that Penguin Random House, they are the publishers. We are still working on the dates of the release, but it's expected to come out towards in a few months from now, maybe towards
Okay.
the end of the year or towards the early part of the coming year. And why should one read it? I think because I think let's look at it this way: Roger Federer doesn't become Roger Federer if he was playing in his condo, tennis court for 3 times a week. Roger Federer becomes Roger Federer because he had put in that dedication, that effort, that sort of years of experience in figuring out what his skills were and how can he leverage that and all. In this case, I've had the opportunity of working across thousands and thousands of creators across different parts of the globe and all. I've tried to, and I'm not a creator, but I'm a business person, so I understand what's going on there, and I've tried to bring all my learnings and compress them into this book. And so, therefore, a person who is kind of struggling to figure out whether, as a creator, will they be able to make money, and if yes, what should they be doing to make money? Which are those platforms that they should go into? This book will simplify a lot of those aspects for the creators, for the brands, and for the platforms. And like you rightly, I think you touched upon it in between somewhere. The platforms are also struggling from a lot of trust and safety issues at the moment. This book also addresses from a very hygiene point of view onto different ways that platforms are coming up and they can leverage the power of creators or content creators over there. Similarly, for brands, my aim has been to reach out to not the established or the big brands really, but to reach out to the small and medium businesses and uncover the areas in which how they can work with creators and build, a sustainable model through which they can reach out to their audiences in the long run and all. So, and finally, the consumers, people who are sitting in the middle of it all, like you and me, we all have this attention economy problem. There are too many windows open in front of us. It's always difficult to figure out where was this chat, whether Instagram Messenger or Facebook Messenger or wherever. I think as a consumer, even to simplify the concept of what the creator economy is and where it is going, this book will help you to understand what's going on behind the scenes and understand from a like I said, from the creator point of view, also understand what the playing field is all about, who's who and what is who doing. So I think this book is a must read for everybody coming in from all those different 5 C's.
Lovely. No, I think with this 30 minutes of conversation, I gained a lot of insights. I'm sure there's a lot more to gain when one reads the book. So, really looking forward to the book.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me over here, Neeraj. It was a really fun interaction with you. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Ankur.
Bye.